2023 is almost at an end, and with it another fine year for board games. And there's always a ton of games coming out every year, and there's no way a single person can play all of them. And this will be 10 of the best games I've played that were released in 2023. Of course, this goes without saying that this will be my opinion, and I also want to know about your favorites of this year as well, so make sure to leave them in the comments. So without further ado, let's go. We start out with a silly game, that's not a hat. This game. This is a memory/bluffing game where each player has a card with an object in front of them, which eventually they'll have to flip to the other side. And that's when it starts to get interesting. Cause you'll be passing cards between players back and forth, but you have to claim what object you're giving out to the other players. And after a while you won't remember what card you have in front of you anymore, because you won't be able to remember everything. And then there's that one guy who just sits there gazing at their card and everybody else just bursts out laughing as they try to make up something on the fly because they've clearly forgotten what the object was. This game is just light, pure, enjoyable fun. Next up is one of the hottest games from Essen this year. It is The White Castle. Yep, the Veer did it again. They managed to cram a moderately big game in an annoyingly small box. This is the follow-up to The Red Cathedral, a great game by the same designers. In this one, you're trying to gain favor among the clans in the feudal Japan era. You'll be sending out various types of workers to do a few chores, which in turn, they'll score you points in different ways. This is a dice drafting/dice placement game at its core with a few elements of engine building. And what starts out as a simple pick a die and place it on a spot to do this action, quickly snowballs and becomes a chain reaction game, in which this action also triggers that action, and that, and that, and that, and that, and it feels good. The game only lasts 3 rounds, and in each round you have 3 turns, for a total of 9 turns over the course of the game. So you need to plan and squeeze out each of your actions. It does take quite a while to play at 4 players though, a great game in a small box. And now we have a reimplementation of a game that's still very popular, and although it's not one I've played a lot, I do acknowledge it's a good design, and this version only makes it better. Of course, it's Age of Innovation. An action selection/resource management game where each player controls a faction and is spreading out across the map, building stuff to score points. This is your typical Eurogame, there's nothing new here. What I like about this game is how much variability it offers. Each player has a faction with their own special something, coupled with a native starting terrain type, along with the starting bonus tile. And this is without mentioning the main board. Your strategy will be vastly different depending on what combination you get. It's still a very thinky, complex game with a lot of things to consider when compared to Terra Mystica, but it's also one of the best remakes to this day. In number 7, you'll be farming, recruiting, finding the Romans and whatnot. It is Keltai. This is a rondel engine building game where the players make their own scoring conditions. Throughout the game you'll have the chance to recruit more members into your tribe, which you'll want to do as soon as possible, because more people means much better actions. And it feels really good to spend very little on a big action, or to just take all the cards in the display in a single go. Just make sure to let all the new players at the table know about this beforehand, so everyone has a good time. There's a lot to like about this game. Although it looks like it's not heavy at all, the gameplay is really smooth. Although some of the wooden components could do with an upgrade, the artwork is amazing. Number 6, it's a sequel to a very popular game loved and hated by many, and it's Expeditions. The so much awaited follow-up to Scythe plays nothing like Scythe, and this doesn't mean it's bad, it's just different. Expeditions is an action selection engine building game where the theme is a little bit far-fetched when compared to Scythe. But putting that aside, it works. It does a lot of what I like. It's an engine builder with a race feel to it, you know, the usual, the first player to place all of their stars in this track ends the game and the player with the most points wins. Top that off with a clever action selection system in which, on your turn, you're moving the action token to a new spot and then you're doing all the actions that are not covered. It's a game that definitely has its flaws, it's not for everyone, in fact it's only for 3 players despite what the box says. Still, it's an amazing game for what it's worth. Next is also one of the hottest games of this year, Earth. A game with a lovely theme, although I find it to be very abstract in this case. Mainly an action selection, tableau/engine building game that feels like a mash of a few other games, put in a pot, give it a good stir, and poof, Earth was born. What? I really don't care about the fauna and the flora theme here. As I said, I find it to be very abstract. It could have been some other theme on top of this, it still would have worked. Mechanically, this is just a fantastic, simple and clean design when, on your turn, you pick one of 4 actions and everyone else does the weaker parts of that action. Not only that, you can also activate the cards with the same color of the action on your tableau. What? Everything flows very smoothly, there's hardly any downtime, everyone is always doing something and having a good time. Number 4 is also a reprint of an older game by Restoration Games. It is Thunder Road Vendetta. This game is just chaos in a box. If I had to compare it to something, it would be Mad Max. This game is a dice chugging fest where you're racing each other, but it's not so much of a race as you're all going at each other's throats. I usually hate this kind of games, but because of the theme that's embedded here, it just works really well for me. And it already has a few expansions. Don't get me wrong, the base game is pretty fun, but the expansions, it's where the game shines. One of them gives you more track options, but most of them provide a much needed asymmetry, where each player and their cars gets their own unique abilities, and if that's not enough, you also have this huge truck that's nearly unstoppable, or these very squishy and agile bikes if you prefer. This game is just pure, chaotic fun in a box. Number 3 is a game we all play every day in real life, and it's Hegemony. This is a very asymmetric political economic game where each player controls a different social class, trying to thrive in a seemingly unfair world. Everyone has their unique way of scoring points. The working class supplies the workers for the various companies, paying very few taxes. Some of them might get unemployed along the way, but hey, that's life. Then you have the middle class. They have a bit more power, and they also have workers, but can also build small companies of their own to provide a little bit more income to pay for the higher taxes. The capitalists are all about the companies. They have the highest revenue, but they also pay a heavy load of taxes. And finally, you have the states, which just wants to keep everybody else happy by providing them benefits. I don't care for politics in the slightest, but this is easily one of the most thematic games I've played to this day. It boils down the social diorama to an amazing experience. Number 2 is another 2023 hot game. It's the first co-op game on this list, and of course it's SkyTeam. This is a 2-player only dice placement game where you are pilots and co-pilots trying to safely land a plane. And it's pretty thematic. You need to steer the plane, get rid of all of the air traffic around the airport, while deploying the needed systems like the landing gear, the flaps, the brakes. And in this game you need to communicate without communicating. Because while you can't really talk to each other, you can give away what you mean with a clever dice placement. Because in this game you can simply get a bad die roll, and when I place a value 5 die on the plane axis spot, I'm telling my partner, hey, that's the best I can do here, you have a few more turns to figure it out and fix it. There's nothing I don't like about this game. It's a puzzle you both need to solve, there's no quarterbacking, no alpha player issues, there's a ton of scenarios, so a lot of replayability right there, and it's a very fast game. Not only an amazing game from 2023, but one of the best ever. And finally, at number 1, yet another game from Essen, one of the most anticipated by 2 amazing designers. It's Nucleum. Nucleum is a hand management, action selection game where players are industrialists during the technological boom of the 19th century, in Saxony fueled by the discovery of nuclear power. Okay, so this is a fairly complex game, but don't let that deter you, because once you get it, you'll just go into auto mode and everything will make sense. It's a tile action driven game, where on your turn you either play a tile in one of 2 ways for its actions, or you get all the tiles you've played on your board back and receive income. And you only have 5 different actions you can do, and they're all fairly simple. There's only one of them that's more intricate than the others. The asymmetry of the experiment boards is really interesting. Everybody has this one technology that's completely broken once it's active. But again, since everyone has one of these, it becomes balanced. There's actually just a couple of things I dislike about this game, which is the setup and the teardown. That's a chore, but this game is brilliant. What I love about it is how much freedom you have in pursuing your objectives and the race feel to it. This fantastic game is one of the best designs ever made and a very strong contender for my favorite game of all time. And And we're done. There's a lot more games I would have liked to be on this list, but there's just no room for them. And there's also a few other games that I thought would make this list, but it turns out they're just not good enough. Anyway, don't forget to list your top 10 games of 2023 in the comments down below. I hope you enjoyed it, thank you so much for watching, and until next time.